أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Yesterday we were discussing about the Basic Principles Committee and its interim report. The main topic was debates within the Constituent Assembly. Today our topic of discussion would be report of the Committee on Fundamental Rights and matters relating to minorities. The Committee on the Fundamental Rights of Citizens submitted its report before the Constituent Assembly, which was accepted in 1950. The proposed constitution granted the right to all citizens, including 11 million members of the minority communities in a population of 76 million, to apply to the Supreme Court for enforcement of their fundamental rights. So, at the time of acceptance of this report by the Constituent Assembly, the population of Pakistan, East and West Pakistan, was 76 million, and there were 11 million members of the minority communities. So all the proposed constitution granted the right to all citizens, including minority communities, uh, to apply to the Supreme Court for enforcement of their fundamental rights, means the citizens cannot be discriminated uh, when they approach the Supreme Court for their uh, for the enforcement of their fundamental rights. Following the model of some of the new constitutions of the world, the constitutions makers granted certain fundamental rights to the citizens, both Muslim and non-Muslim, in Pakistan. So the proposed in the proposed constitution, the Basic Principles Committee suggested the fundamental rights which were granted in the constitution of other countries. So these fundamental rights were proposed or suggested for both Muslims and non-Muslims in Pakistan. The fundamental rights included the following important provisions. So, the important provisions of the fundamental rights in the proposed constitution were, the first one was equality of all citizens before the law. So, according to the proposed constitution, the all citizens of Pakistan were equal uh, before the law. Equal protection of law to all citizens. So the proposed constitution also uh, suggested the equal protection of law to all citizens without any discrimination, that the all citizens of Pakistan could enjoy the all uh, fundamental rights provided in the constitution, and the law shall protect them uh, without any discrimination. No discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth with regard to access to place of public entertainment, recreation, welfare, or utility. So, according to the proposed constitution, the guarantee was given that there must not be any discrimination on the basis of religion, uh, caste, race, sex, or place of birth with regard to access uh, to the places of public entertainment like cinemas, parks, recreation, welfare like the hospitals, schools, or utility like uh, the facility of electricity, the facility to use a telephone. There must not be any discrimination on the basis of religion, sex, caste, creed, or place of birth. Every qualified citizen would be eligible for induction in the services of the state irrespective of religion, race, caste, sex, descent, or place of birth. So, another right of the citizen was protected, or you can say another right was granted, that all citizens of Pakistan uh, shall have right to be inducted in the uh, state service, like uh, superior uh, services or provincial services. Like these days, we have to pass the exam of CSS or PCS to join the federal services and federal state services and provincial state services. So there must not be any kind of discrimination to join the state service. That right of citizens was also protected in the proposed constitution. Every citizen was granted freedom of speech, conscience, expression, association, profession, occupation, trade, or business. So the all citizens of Pakistan were granted the freedom of uh, speech or freedom to join a profession of his own choice or to start a business of his own choice or to express his feelings or uh, his views in the public as well as within his uh, inner circles or in the gatherings, family gatherings or any political gatherings, the citizens were granted to express their views freely means the freedom of expression was granted. Freedom of association or freedom of occupation, trade or business was also granted in the proposed constitution. No community would be prevented from providing a religious instruction to the people of its own community, and the personal law of every community was granted. So, you can say the every religious community was granted to preach their religion to their followers or their younger generations without any interference by the state or by any other citizen. And every religious community was granted to live their lives according to their personal laws. So these days you can observe that Islamic personal law uh, is implemented for the Muslims and the other religious communities in Pakistan are they living lives according to their personal laws. They do their marriages according to their personal law. They have divorces according to their personal laws, and all religious communities uh, divide their share of property after the death of deceased, or you can say the inheritance law uh, is also according to the uh, personal law of all religious communities. So, in even in within the Muslim community, uh, we have a choice to follow the personal law of our own sect. So, if you uh, have already studied the Islamic personal law, you know that the law of inheritance is applicable in Pakistan according to the uh, sect of the deceased Muslim. For example, if a Sunni Muslim dies, his estate would be divided according to the Sunni law. Or if a Shia Muslim dies, uh, his property or estate would be divided in his legal heirs according to the Shia personal laws. So, all religious communities were granted to uh, live their lives according to their personal laws. No person would be compelled to pay any special taxes, the proceeds of which would be specifically appropriated for the propagation of any religion other than this. The non-Muslim members of the Constituent Assembly often expressed the apprehension that in an Islamic state, Islam would be propagated and maintained with public money, and that the non-Muslims would be forced to pay taxes for this purpose. So another guarantee was given that any type of tax could not be collected from the communities that would be used to propagate the uh, other community religion. For example, if the government collect taxes from the uh, Christian community or Hindu community, and that tax money is used for the propagation of Islamic principles in the state, so that was restricted on the apprehension of non-Muslim members of the Constituent Assembly. Further, it was provided that there would be no discrimination against any community in the matter of exemption, against any community in the matter of exemption from or concession in taxes granted with respect to religious institution. No discrimination in admission to educational institutions would be permitted. So another guarantee was uh, given to the uh, citizens of Pakistan that there would not be any kind of discrimination at the time of admission in the educational institutions like universities and colleges on the basis of uh, provincialism, uh, religion, caste or creed or sex or place of birth. So all citizens of Pakistan shall have the right to get admission in all educational institutions freely. The report of the fundamental rights of citizens received favorable comments both inside and outside the Constituent Assembly. It was quite a comprehensive list of rights, and Liaquat could claim with some justification that all the essential rights have been provided. So this report was uh, this report was widely accepted by the members of the Constituent Assembly and members of the or you can say the citizens of the Pakistan outside the Constituent Assembly. So the Liaquat was in justified to say that he uh, provided all the essential rights to the citizens of Pakistan. In addition to these fundamental rights which were applicable to Muslims and non-Muslims alike, special safeguards for minorities were provided in the Constitution. The Committees on Fundamental Rights set up a subcommittee on matters relating to minorities at its first meeting held in 1948. The Minorities Committee included uh, representation from all groups of the minority population. The subcommittee issued the following questionnaire to important individuals and organizations in the country with the view to ascertaining the views of the public on this complicated question. So Basic Principles Committee provided equal rights to all Muslims and non-Muslim citizens of the Pakistan, but this committee set up a subcommittee. The Fundamental Rights Committee set up a subcommittee on minority rights in 1948 and special safeguards to provide special safeguards to the minorities. So the subcommittee issued a questionnaire to the individuals or and organizations in the country with the view to ascertain the views of the public on this complicated question. The first question in the questionnaire was what should be the political safeguards of a minority in the center and in the provinces. Second question was in the questionnaire what should be the economic safeguards of a minority in the center and in the province. The third question, what safeguards should be provided for a minority with regard to matters religious, educational, social, and cultural. Number four, what methods are suggested to make these safeguards effective? Number five, should any of the safeguards be eliminated later, and if so, how, when, and under what circumstances? Number six, any other remarks or suggestions with regard to safeguards for a minority? The suggestions received from the public were numerous and often divergent. They were circulated in a consolidated form to the members of the subcommittee, which made its decision in the light of suggestions and proposals received from the public. Some of the Hindu leaders had maintained that they did not want any safeguards, but regardless of what they said, it was clear from the beginning that safeguards were needed for the religious minorities, particularly when the Constituent Assembly decided to have an Islamic constitution. The main point of discussion in the Constituent Assembly between the Muslim and non-Muslim members of the Constituent Assembly was this, that the Constituent Assembly decided that the constitution would be an Islamic constitution. So the members of the minority community were in apprehension that they uh, shall not have any safeguards in the country of Pakistan. They were worried about their future and they were worried about their fundamental rights provided in other countries to the minorities, uh, uh, that they could not have these rights in Islamic Republic, Islamic uh, Constitution of Pakistan. In one of the memoranda submitted to the Constituent Assembly by the minority communities, it was demanded that the Hindus should get representation in the legislature not only according to their members, but also some weightage should be given to them. For instance, in East Bengal, where the Hindu constituted about 23% of the entire population, it was demanded that they should get 41% of the seats in the East Bengal legislature. Other safeguards considered essential for the minorities were as follows. The number one, they should be protected from the threat of physical persecution. In the months following partition, there were riots in India and Pakistan, resulting in the death of members of the minorities. But by 1950, Pakistan could justly point out that not a single communal riot had taken place in that year. Meanwhile, in India, not a single year had passed since partition without riots and physical persecutions of the minority community of Muslims. There was at that time no threat of physical persecution of the minorities in Pakistan. This was freely admitted by the minorities themselves. The minorities demanded uh, their representation in the Constituent Assembly not only on the basis of their population size, but they demanded, especially the Hindu community, demanded some weightage in the Constituent Assembly. That's why they demanded that although we have 23rd percent of population in East Bengal, but we must be given 41% seats in the Assembly of East Bengal legislature. Assalamualaikum. वासनाम हाँ जी ठीक है जी हाँ जी ठीक है जी sorry. So the Hindu community whose population was 23rd percent in 23% in East Bengal or East Pakistan, they demanded they must have some weightage uh, more than their population size in the Constituent Assembly. That's why they demanded 41% seats in the East Bengal or East Pakistan legislature. So the safeguard considered essentials for the minorities were the first one was that the minorities should be protected from the threat of physical persecution. This safeguard was demanded because at the time of partition, you know that uh, during the migration of Muslims to Pakistan and Hindus to the India, there were riots and there were killings of um, millions of Muslims and other communities who were migrating from Pakistan to India or India to Pakistan. But by 1950, the minorities did not face any type of persecution or riots in Pakistan, but in India, every single year there were persecution, physical persecutions of the minority community of Muslims. Uh, if you look at the media these days, uh, the Muslim community is also still facing the physical threat, physical persecution from the Hindu majority in India. So This type of persecution or physical threats from the majority uh, were the safeguard from physical threat or physical persecutions were demanded. Religious minorities must possess freedom of conscience in its widest sense that has already been provided in the Fundamental Rights of Citizens by 1950. Minorities which differ from the majority in language and culture should have the right to run their own schools, provided, of course, that they conform to the general regulations of the government regarding education and that such schools were not used to inculcate a spirit of hostility to the majority of the state. This was also clearly provided in the fundamental rights. So, any community, the minority community whose culture and language is different from the majority community, they they can have their own schools. They can run their own schools, but provided, or we can say, they can run their schools, but with certain limitations, which were that they conform to the general regulation of the government regarding education. They can run their own schools, but they have to follow the general regulations of the government regarding education, and that such schools were not used to inculcate a spirit of hostility to the majority of the state. And these educational institutes shall not propagate the hostility or hatred against the majority population of the Pakistan, or majority of the state. This was also clearly provided in the fundamental rights. In its final report on the minorities' rights, the Constituent Assembly added the following safeguards in addition to those already provided for in the fundamental rights. So these three rights which we will discuss now were provided additionally in the final report on the minority rights. The number one, any minority residing in the territory of Pakistan or any part thereof having a distinct language, script, or culture of its own should not be prevented from conserving the same. So, the any community or any minority who is residing within the territorial limits of Pakistan, which is having their own culture, language, script, and they should not be prevented from uh, using their own language, uh, applying their own culture in their lives, or script, the writing script. They shall not be uh, um, prevented from using their own script of language. The state shall not discriminate in granting aid to educational institutions, discriminate against any educational institution merely on the ground that it is mainly maintained by a religious community. So the state usually gives grants and aids to the educational institutions in Pakistan. So this was also granted in the final report that states shall not discriminate while providing aid or grant to any educational institute just on the basis of that this educational institute is maintained by a particular religious community. The example of this that our the Prime Minister Imran Khan provided grant to the uh, uh, Madrasa Haqqaniya in KPK 30 crore rupees when he assumed his office as Prime Minister. So this is the an example of providing aid or grant to the educational institutions. So this safeguard was provided that such types of grants or aids which were provided by the state to the educational institutions should not be uh, should not be uh, prevented just on the basis of that this uh, educational institution is maintained by particular uh, religious community. The third safeguard was added in the final report. There shall be a minister for minority affairs both at the center and in the province to look after the interests of the minorities and to see that the safeguard provided in the constitution for the minorities are duly observed. So another safeguard which was added in the final report was that uh, the ministry was created in central government and provincial governments as well of ministry minister for minorities affairs. So that minister or that ministry shall look after the interest of the minorities and to see that the safeguards provided or the rights provided in the constitution for minorities are duly observed. So these ministries in the central government and provincial governments are still existing in Pakistan. The minister for you can say Wazir Baraye Aqliti Amir in Urdu and in English Minister for Minorities Affairs. So this was the report of the Committee on Fundamental Rights and Matters relating to the minorities, which was submitted in the Constituent Assembly and was accepted in 1950. Any question? Any question? Any question?